only just opened the Chile Observatory, and it's just in time for the moon to rise. It's actually rising halfway during the eclipse. So we're actually going to be following the second half of the eclipse using that very telescope, the Chile High Magnification Telescope, which, by the way, Jerry, I've only just come back from Chile. Actually, that is a brand new telescope that SLU members are using. Pretty cool, eh?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Like I said, hardest working man in show business. All right, Paul, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You'll be back in just a few minutes to tell us all about seeing the Earth's shadow in other ways. And coming right up, SLU's human spirit correspondent, Helen Avery, will be here to talk about how lunar eclipses have appeared in history. Stay with us.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
All step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And welcome back to our live show, the Penumbral Lunar Eclipse, the snow moon eclipse, if you will. We're watching live as this eclipse has reached its maximum now. In the last segment, I spoke to SLU astronomer Paul Cox about how this eclipse is actually Earth casting its partial shadow on the moon. And now here to reflect on that and talk about lunar eclipses in other countries and throughout history is SLU's human spirit correspondent, Helen Avery. Helen, these live images are fantastic, are they not?
I know, it's really something special, isn't it? I was out there with my binoculars, but this is a better view.
It really is, and warmer. Now we're watching the shadow of Earth cast on the moon, and I know that is something you were really looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, it's very moving, I think, it's so rare. Well, you know, we get to see our shadow on the moon.
Mm.
So one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, we live on Earth and we walk around and um, know that we live on Earth, and we see pictures from, you know, the satellites of Earth, but it's rare that it sort of is more of a concept for us. So when we finally get to see the Earth's shadow in front of us on the moon, I think it's sort of very like grounding in one way, that you feel sort of very connected to the Earth. And so you begin to realize we really are a planet just hanging out in space.
It really is important from a spiritual standpoint, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and sort of for many reasons, really. Like, you know, it's when you think about sort of Jungian philosophy and the idea of seeing one's shadow, um, and this idea that we reject so much of ourselves and sort of disown ourselves, and then take a look at these parts of ourselves we don't really like, our shadow side, and then gradually bring them back in and become whole. So tonight, this full moon, and then you have this earth seeing shadow. That for a lot of people, it's a really special night to sort of connect and release, you know, all those judgments that we have about ourselves and these things we don't like, and have a sort of deeper dig at, you know, all those parts of ourselves that we've rejected, whether we're angry on who we haven't forgiven. So it's a really sort of, so it's a very special night. And some people say that the lunar eclipse has like an energy with it for sometimes 3 months. So whatever you're giving away tonight to Mother Moon is extra powerful.
Okay, I understand. I don't give too many things away, but if I do, if I do. Well, Helen, we've talked on previous shows about how important the moon is to various cultures and lunar eclipses, especially. I'm just going to assume that they appear in cultural writings and teachings and have throughout history.
Yeah, and this is really sort of mind-blowing and special to me. So when you look at any of the cultures, the ancient cultures and even sort of the more modern cultures, and whether that is in China or India, the Incas, the Greeks, the Scandinavians in the Dark Ages, and the Germans in medieval times, they all saw the lunar eclipse as something attacking the moon. So, right, and it depends on what their culture was, like what was attacking it. So for the Incas, it was a jaguar. For the Chinese, it was a dragon. In India, there was one part of India, a giant that was munching on the moon. Another was a serpent. In Europe and Scandinavia, it was the wolf and the dog. So it's kind of fascinating. Like, for example, like the Chinese astronomers really understood eclipses. Well, I mean, they knew when they were coming and predicted with huge accuracy. And yet when it came to like a lunar eclipse, they didn't realize that this was the Earth's shadow, which kind of blows my mind. And the astronomers in for the emperor outside the palace used to write notes and post them around cities saying, please come out on this day and save our moon. And what you'll find in every one of these cultures, there's also Native American traditions as well, also Mexico, and this continues today, is in every single one of these cultures, this time happened around a lunar eclipse, that people went out under the moon with banging on drums, banging kettles, howling to the moon, in an attempt to scare off whatever it was that was taking a bite out of the moon, which just kind of blows my mind that everyone had a sense of, we must save the moon, we must save the moon, this is what we're going to do.
Well, I'm laughing, of course, and we would laugh at something like that now, but I'm sure they were totally freaked out and didn't think it was funny at all. But there must be some lighthearted stories about lunar eclipses throughout history as well, right?
Well, there's one, I'm not sure it's particularly lighthearted, but in the Sumerians, thousands and thousands of years ago, they thought that in a lunar eclipse, after whatever it was done, marching on the moon would come and kill their king. So what they did was, at the time of lunar eclipse, they would hire a stuntman or a stand-in for their king, and during that period, he would sit there, and if nothing happened, then at the end of the lunar eclipse, they would switch back. But unbeknownst, you think, what a great job, stuntman for the king, because he was treated like a king while he was on the throne for that brief period of time. But what tended to happen was that a couple of days later, he would suddenly accidentally fall off a cliff, or maybe he drank too much wine and stuff like that. Like, it was, this man maybe knew too much, or would get ideas about the stations, and thank you very much for playing your role, but now you're off. So that was one sort of light-hearted thing I found. But the other, and this is like really blows my mind, I'd love to hear what people think about this. There is research out there that shows that seismic activity increases with a lunar eclipse. And so I can't help but, personify Earth and think, I wonder if when Earth sees its shadow, or almost like reflection, that it quakes, that in some way it sort of shakes with sort of this understanding of finally seeing itself. Like, you can imagine, we walk around all the time. Imagine if you've never seen a mirror, and all of a sudden someone puts a mirror in your face, and like, oh my God, that's my face. And I often think maybe that's what the Earth does with lunar eclipses. So yeah.
And I wonder, if the Earth sees its shadow, does that mean 6 more weeks of winter, or is that just groundhogs? I don't know. Hey, Helen Avery, our human spirit correspondent, thank you so much. And I know you're not done for the night. You'll be back in a few hours when we discuss the comet that's very close to planet Earth. So thanks very much, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again shortly. And coming up, SLU astronomer Paul Cox back to tell us about other ways you can see Earth's shadow. So stay tuned. We're excited to announce the release of our first book, The Saturn Above It, an anthology of short fiction about space. Available now at SLU.com. And we welcome you back here on SLU. You're taking a look at the snow moon penumbral eclipse, courtesy of our high magnification telescope in Chile. And it's time to welcome Paul Cox back to the proceedings. And Paul, this is Earth casting a partial shadow on the moon. Are there other ways for people to see Earth's shadow?
You know, we were talking about this the other day, and there's a really spectacular way of doing it. Would you believe that the Earth actually casts a shadow on its own atmosphere? And we can see it when you're at a very high altitude. So whenever I'm at the Canary Islands Observatory, SLU's flagship observatory, it's where the telescopes are that we were watching earlier. SLU members control them every night. When the sun actually goes down, we'll put it up in a sec, because we get to see the shadow of Pico del Teide, which there it is. There is the volcanic cone and the shadows going up. But wait until it fully reaches the horizon. And there's the full moon, by the way, rising earlier on. But what we're seeing now, the shadow is going above the actual horizon. That's Earth's shadow being cast on the upper atmosphere. So yes, when you're at these incredibly high altitudes, you get to see Earth shadow. And when you see it, Jerry, when you're there, you see from one horizon to the other, and you can actually see the curvature of the Earth's shadow as it's cast into the upper atmosphere. But what a spectacular shot this is from earlier on. This is a time lapse of this full snow moon rising just before, it was about an hour before the actual penumbral eclipse started.
That is absolutely fascinating and gorgeous, by the way. Check that out. That is amazing. Okay, so we have a number of telescopes. There's the high magnification telescope, but there must be easy ways to photograph an eclipse if you just have a DSLR, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, you know, for a lunar eclipse, I would always recommend to watch these with your naked eyes. And it's the only kind of eclipse, actually. Lunar eclipse is the only kind of eclipse that you don't need any optical aid for at all. Although I would recommend, you know, certainly on tonight's penumbral eclipse, I would recommend a pair of binoculars if you've got those. But yeah, if you want to take images of a penumbral eclipse, or a total actually, the best way of doing it, as you say, with a standard consumer DSLR camera, what I like to do, the very simplest way of doing this, Jerry, is just to use the normal kit lens on it and frame something up so that you're going to see the moon for the entirety of the eclipse, but you've also got a bit of landscape, you know, shot in there as well. So compose your photograph as normal, and then just keep taking images at maybe 5-minute intervals. You could do it faster if you wanted. And then what you can do in the SLU Clubhouse, actually, we show members how to do this. You can combine all of those images. And what you get to see is the moon is slowly rising or moving across the sky. And it starts out a lot brighter. As the greatest eclipse wears on, the moon gets darker and darker and darker. And then on the other side, it carries on going and gets lighter and lighter and lighter. Those kind of composite images, I think, make some of the best lunar eclipse photos that you can generate, but very easy to do.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those thanks to our SLU members. And speaking of which, if people want to use our telescopes, Paul, to observe the moon or anything, how do they go about doing that?
Oh, really easy. You just sign up to SLU, join SLU, and you get immediate access to control the telescopes, both at the Canary Islands Observatory and the one that we're watching here in the Chile, at the Chile Observatory. So we get to see all of the night sky, the southern hemisphere as well as northern hemisphere. And it is so easy to control those telescopes. If you don't know what to look at, you can just choose a list, select your time, choose from a list, and of course you can watch it live, just as we're watching missions tonight. But if you can't stay up maybe to watch your live missions, then all of your images are saved for you automatically. But another thing, Jerry, that a lot of people don't actually realize is you don't just get to control the telescopes for yourself, but you also get to watch what everybody else is controlling the telescopes for to watch. So you always get to see something new and strange, whether it's a supernova exploding in some cataclysmic explosion, or maybe like the comet that we're going to see a little bit later, this mysterious green comet, which is looking fabulous in the telescopes at the moment.
Oh, beautiful. That's good to know. Before we let you go, Paul, we have a question for you, and it comes from 6-year-old Havana, who wants to know, Paul, why there are craters on the moon.
Craters on the moon? Well, you know, it wasn't that long ago in my lifetime that a lot of people thought that those craters were volcanoes. But we now know, because men set foot on the moon, we now know that they are all asteroid impacts. So huge chunks of space rock plummeting into the moon at tremendous speed. And those are most of the white craters that you can see there, the big dark areas. Those are actually larger craters, but have been filled up with black lava. So that's why the moon is peppered with craters all over it. And of course, there's no weather there, Havana, so they don't wear away. The craters will stay there forever.
All right, Havana, thank you so much for the question. And Paul, thank you. We'll check back with you in a couple of hours when the comet goes flying by. Well done.
See you later.
All right, that about wraps it up for us here tonight, but the eclipse is not over yet. There's still a couple of hours to enjoy, and we'll have the whole thing streaming live right here. So keep it here. Before we go, I'd like to thank my guests tonight, SLU astronomer Paul Cox and Human Spirit correspondent Helen Avery. If you enjoyed tonight's show, we do this all the time here at SLU. You won't have to wait long for the next one. Just after the end of the eclipse, starting at 10:30 Eastern Time tonight, we'll be pointing our telescopes to the skies in the Canary Islands to catch a glimpse of Comet 45P just before it makes its close approach. It's the closest a comet has come to Earth in a long time. You'll be able to see it live here on SLU. And in just a couple of weeks, on February 26th, we'll be broadcasting another eclipse, the Southern Ring of Fire solar eclipse. Will be casting its shadow over parts of South America, Africa, and Antarctica. You can't see it anywhere else. We'll have it live right here on SLU. Of course, we're also gearing up for our live broadcast of the celestial event of the year, the transcontinental eclipse in the U.S. on August 21st. We got big plans for SLU members. To stay up to date on the latest, just head over to slu.com and sign up. And we'll see you in just a little while. Until then, I'm Jerry Monteur. You're watching SLU, Space for Everyone. Thanks for stopping by. you.